हाय फ्रेंड, वेलकम टू साइंस आई क्यू। हम लोग शुरू कर रहे हैं लक्ष्मीकांत की सीरीज, और ये जो सीरीज है वो 60 to 70 लेक्चर्स में हमारी कंप्लीट हो जाएगी। तो आप प्लीज इसको पूरा कंटिन्यू देखिएगा, बिकॉज इट इज गोइंग टू बी वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट। ऑलराइट, सो लेट्स स्टार्ट। कम्युनल अवार्ड। लक्ष्मीकांत की सीरीज का जो हमारा नेक्स्ट टॉपिक है वो है हमारा कम्युनल अवार्ड। अगस्त 1932 की बात चल रही है। रैमसे मैकडोनाल्ड, he was the British Prime Minister. He announced a scheme of representation of minorities, which came to be known as the Communal Award. So he was he was the first British Prime Minister who announced that he is going to launch a scheme, and that scheme will include the representation of the minorities. So this scheme came to be known as the Communal Award. Award not only continued separate electorate for the Muslims, Sikhs, Indians and Christians, but also for Anglo-Indians and Europeans, but also it also extended to the depressed classes, to the scheduled castes. Gandhiji was distressed over this extension of the principle of communal representation to the depressed classes, and undertook fast unto death in Yerwada jail, the Pune, to get the award modified. At last, there was an agreement between the leaders of the Congress and the depressed classes. The agreement came to be known as the Pune Pact. It retained the Hindu joint electorate and gave reserved seats to the depressed classes. So, the seats were given only to the depressed classes. Now, next act is Government of India Act of 1935. The act marked this act marked a second milestone towards a completely responsible government in India. It was a lengthy and detailed document. It was having 321 sections and 10 schedules. Features of this act were as followed. It provided for the establishment of an All India Federation. An All India Federation was established, consisting of provinces and princely states as units. The act divided the powers between the center and units in terms of three lists. Federal list, it was for center with 59 items. Then provincial list for provinces with 54 items, and the concurrent list for both with 36 items. Residuary powers were given to the viceroy. However, the federation never came into being as the princely states did not join it. Then second point is that it abolished diarchy, that is the dual form of the government in the provinces, and it introduced provincial autonomy. In its place, provinces were allowed to act as autonomous units of administration in their defined spheres. Moreover, the act introduced responsible government in provinces. That is, the governor was required to act with the advice of minister responsible to the provincial legislature. This came into effect in 1937 and was discontinued in 1939. The third point is that it provided for the adoption of diarchy at the center. Consequently, federal subjects were divided into reserved subjects and transfer subjects. However, this provision of the act did not came into operation at all. It introduced bicameralism in 6 out of 11 provinces. Thus, the legislatures of Bengal, Bombay, Madras, Bihar, Assam and the United Provinces were made bicameral, consisting of Legislative Council, that is upper house, and a Legislative Assembly, that is the lower house. However, many restrictions were placed on them. It further extended the principle of communal representation by providing separate electorates for depressed classes, that is, to the scheduled castes, women, and labor, that is, workers. It also abolished the Council of India, established by the Government of India Act of 1858. Secretary of State for India was provided with a team of advisors. It extended franchising, that is about 10% of the total population got the voting right. It also provided for the establishment of RBI. RBI is the Reserve Bank of India. So it is a very old bank to control the currency credit of the country. It provided for the establishment of not only a federal public service commission but also a provincial public service commission and joint public service commission for 2 or more provinces. And next and the last point is that it also provided for the establishment of federal court, which was set up in 1937. Now the next and most important act is Indian Independence Act of 1947, that is the Independence Act. On February 20, 1947, British Prime Minister Clement Attlee declared that British rule in India would end by June 30, 1948, after which the power would be transferred to responsible Indian hands. Announcement was followed by the agitation by the Muslim League demanding partition of the country. Again on June 3, 1947, the British government made it clear that any constitution framed by the Constituent Assembly of India, it was formed in 1946, cannot apply to those parts of the country which were unwilling to accept it. That is, that constitution cannot be applied to those parts of the country that was not interested to form the part of the India, that to become the part of the India. On the same day, on June 3, 1947, Lord Mountbatten, he was the Viceroy of India at that time, he put forth the partition plan known as the Mountbatten Plan. This plan was accepted by the Congress and the Muslim League. Immediate effect was given to the plan by enacting the Indian Independence Act of 1947. So features of the act was that British rule ended British rule India and declared India as an independent and sovereign state from 15th August 1947. It provided for the partition of India and creation of 2 independent dominions of India and Pakistan with the right to secede from the British Commonwealth. So that there can be like 2 independent dominions of India and Pakistan with the right to secede from the British Commonwealth. Third point is that it also abolished the office of Viceroy and provided for each dominion a Governor General was to be appointed by the British King on the advice of the Dominion Cabinet. So that the office of Viceroy was abolished, and for each dominion, that is for the India and for the Pakistan, instead of the Viceroy, a Governor General was to be appointed by the British King on the advice of Dominion Cabinet. His Majesty's government in Britain was to have no responsibility with respect to the government of India or Pakistan. So, His Majesty's government in Britain was to have no responsibility with respect to the government of India or Pakistan. It also empowered the constituent assemblies of the 2 dominions to frame and adopt any constitution for their respective nations and to repeal any act of the British Parliament, including the Independence Act itself. It empowered the constituent assemblies of both the dominions to legislate for their respective territories till the new constitution was drafted and enforced. No act of the British Parliament passed after 15th August 1947 was to be extended to either of the new dominions unless it was extended thereto by a law of the legislature of the dominion. It also abolished the office of the Secretary of State for India and transferred his functions to the Secretary of State for Commonwealth Affairs. It proclaimed the lapse of the British paramountcy over the Indian princely states and treated relations with tribal areas from August 15, 1947. It also granted freedom to the Indian princely states either to join the dominion of India or dominion of the Pakistan or to remain independent. It also provided for the governance of each of the dominions and the provinces by the Government of India Act of 1935 till new constitution were framed. Dominions were now, however, authorized to make modifications in the Act. Then, 10th point is that it deprived the British monarch of his right to veto bills or ask for reservation of certain bills for his approval. But this right was reserved for the Governor General. The Governor General would have full power to assent to any bill in the name of His Majesty, Governor General. It designated the Governor General of India and the provincial governors as constitutional heads of the states. They were made to act on the advice of the respective Council of Ministers in all matters. It dropped the title of Emperor of India from the royal titles of the King of England. It discontinued the appointment to civil services and reservation of post by the Secretary of State for India. The members of the civil services appointed before August 15, 1947 would continue to enjoy all benefits that they were entitled to till that time. At the stroke of midnight of 15th August 1947, the British rule came to an end and power was transferred to the two new independent dominions of India and Pakistan. It was Lord Mountbatten who became the first Governor General of the new Dominion of India. He swore in Jawaharlal Nehru as the first Prime Minister of independent India. Constituent Assembly of India formed in 1946 became the Parliament of the Indian Dominion. So it was known as the interim government, and the member were that Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru. He was chosen as the Vice President of the Council and External Affairs and Commonwealth relations to look after the External Affairs and Commonwealth relations. This was the portfolio that was held by him. Second one was Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel. He was the Home, Information and Broadcasting Minister. Then third one was Dr. Rajendra Prasad, Food and Agriculture Minister. Dr. John Mathai, Industries and Supplies Ministers. Jagjeevan Ram was the Labour Minister. Sardar Baldev Singh, Defence Minister. C.H. Baba, Works, Mines and Powers Ministers. Liaquat Ali Khan, the Finance Minister, and Abdur Rab Nishtar, Post and Air Ministers. Then Asaf Ali, Railways and Transport Ministers, and C. Raja Gopalachari, Education and Arts Ministers. I. Chandrigar, the Commerce Minister. Gajnafar Ali Khan, Health Minister, and Joginder Nath Mandal, the Law Minister. Members of the interim government were members of the Viceroy Executive Council. Viceroy continued to be the head of the council, but Jawaharlal Nehru was designated as the Vice President of the council. First Cabinet of Free India 1947. So Jawaharlal Nehru was chosen as the Prime Minister, External Affairs and Commonwealth Relations, Scientific and Research. So he was also chosen to look after the External Affairs, Commonwealth Relations, Scientific Research. Second is our Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel. He was chosen as the Home Minister, Information and Broadcasting States. Then third one, Dr. Rajendra Prasad, Food and Agriculture. Maulana Abdul Kalam Azad. So the next was Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel. Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel, he was the Home, Information and Broadcasting Minister of State. Dr. Rajendra Prasad, Food and Agriculture. Maulana Abdul Kalam Azad, Education. Dr. John Mathai, Railway and Transport. R.K. Shanmugam, Finance. Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, Law Minister. Jagjeevan Ram, Labour. Sardar Baldev Singh, Defence. Rajkumar Amrit Kaur, Health Minister. Chaudhry Bhabha, Commerce, and Rafi Ahmed Kidwai, Communications. Dr. Shyama Prasad Mukherjee, Industries and Supplies. And V.N. Gadgil, Works, Mines and Power Minister. Okay, so this was all about this chapter. From tomorrow, we are going to start a new chapter, that is the making of the Constitution. In this chapter, we will study how the Constitution was made. So thank you so much. Please do support me. Please subscribe my